Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out ProRevenge. Story 1. He infringes my art. I shut down his print shop and ruined his career. A little backstory, I'm an online artist and this took place when I was in my early 20s. There was a popular artist who calls himself a professional and works in the industries. I used to look up to him. Let's call him Zach. Lately, I noticed how Zach's art looked eerily too familiar to a piece of media I've seen before. So I looked up the images and found it too matched up to his art. He was directly referencing official art and profiting off of it by selling it on his print shops online. He didn't make any effort to make the reference detaches from the original piece. I confronted him about it, sending a detailed message not to do that and the possible consequences. I have seen artists in real life who are sued for over $100,000 and to the extent in jail for doing what they did. Instead of being professional and mature about it, he lashed out at me and took it to social media, telling me how wrong I was to falsely accuse him since artists use references and how I could get sued for libel. I was dumbfounded at how clueless he was, not comprehending what I was talking about. He included my username, which my blog had links to my contacts, my emails, Facebook page, art accounts, and Instagram. His fans, including his group of friends, joined in sending me downright horrific messages to me. I had panic attacks resulting from the pure backlash of his enormous fan base. I constantly received hate mail, telling me how horrible I am as a person, how shitty my art was, and to the extent of death threats for almost an entire month. The last straw that broke the camel's back was when he directly referenced off of my art and made money off of it. I didn't know how to find a lawyer and I feel hopeless and angry that I couldn't do anything about it. Later it hit me, if I can't do it, then maybe another artist can, or anyone holds the copyright. The last time I remember, Zach never credited any of these artists for his references. I looked into the art he referenced and examined each official company matching Zach's art. I used Google search to find anyone working for a said company and voila! I found a staff member for a branch in a different continent. Let's call him Cody. I contacted Cody's Facebook and tipped him about Zach's activity through Messenger. I uploaded and sent a copy of their art and Zach's art for comparison. Cody just simply replied, "We'll contact our legal team, thanks for the notice." Another week passes by and during the time he constantly posts to every damn thing I post about in my art blog. And then silence. I checked, his print shop was removed. His response to my message was taken down from his social media. He stops talking to his friends publicly. Days later a fan was asking about him and he responded how he is no longer friends with them cause they are very toxic hypocrites. One of his former group of friends contacted my friend and cried about how awful a bully he was. Of course, my friend didn't care. It was the most glorifying feeling I have ever rejoiced. This would have been avoided if he at least heeded my warnings. How he handled the situation was not professional at all. About 5 years later I had been informed that apparently, he has a tough time getting back into the industry after there were allegations of his past copyright infringement. The biggest one was having a lawsuit with the big company Cody worked for. Story 2. Lay off a third of the team and expect us to work harder. We will see about that. So this happened sometime in the 2010s somewhere in the UK, that's all I'm revealing. I worked for a medium-sized PLC in a small team that worked with the sales department getting quotes. I had previously worked in another team in a different department in the same company as well. This also includes elements of malicious compliance. I'll post this there as well. So to set the scene, the company had recently had some issues with regulators and senior management were either oblivious to the damage they were doing or didn't care. They were trying to save costs but going about it all the wrong way. So my team consists of 6 team members and a manager. We were fairly busy and often helped out on other teams as well, and they would in turn help us. This is important for later. So we are all called into a meeting without warning and told that due to declining work tickets they were laying 2 of us off. They did say 2 people were safe, the manager and his sidekick. They made us reapply for our jobs, including doing a test, following the letter of the law on redundancy, which had nothing to do with our roles. It also became apparent during the process that the company flat out lied or at the very minimum manipulated the data used to come up with their conclusion of falling ticket numbers. They dropped by 13 from year 1 to year 3, bear in mind it was a total of several thousand tickets a year. In the end the company carried on and 2 team members were removed and made redundant, one of whom took a golden handshake, the other sued the company for various things, not really worthy of mention here, and won. After the dust settled it also became apparent manager secured his sidekick's position despite him being the worst member of the team in terms of work done and work quality. So in the weeks after the entire team were too busy to help other teams who then stopped helping us, so a huge backlog of tickets also built up. We also got threatened with disciplinary proceedings if our backlog didn't come down. But was also refused any overtime. During the process we had also been admonished for skipping steps in getting quotes, steps that often took a significant amount of time, and served no purpose, so me and 2 others remaining, not including sidekick who had his nose so far up manager's rear-ended and came out of his mouth, decided to do everything by the book, down to every last bullet point. This made the backlog of work even worse, but they couldn't say anything. One week we had another meeting with HR, the sales director manager, to discuss the issues. We all calmly said we are sorry but we have to follow the guidelines and rules laid down and this is as fast as we can work. We were also asked to start helping out the other teams again as we should be team players. Again we said we are sorry but we can't, our workload is too high and it's also not in our contracts that we have to do other teams' work. This went on for several months and management still refused to believe we were overworked. When it was time for holidays we realized they hadn't changed the amount of people allowed off from 3. So we all booked holidays, they both went abroad and I decided to visit family the other end of the UK. Of course when manager realized, a week before, he went nuts and another meeting with HR was called. We all calmly said sorry but we checked the rules for our team and 3 people, out of 4, manager could do what he likes, can be off at any one time. And again stood our ground and all went on leave for 2 weeks each. This caused even more chaos at work as you can imagine. The sales director after this hatched a plan to get the Indian teams, we had offices in India and other offshore places, to be trained up by us and to help us, however they demanded we fly out to spend weeks there training them. Again we all refused as it's not in our contracts to be trainers or to have to work abroad. They ignored the fact I didn't have a passport at this point. So poor old manager and his sidekick traveled out and trained them for weeks. Eventually both stayed for over 2 months and failed to train them. We would send low-effort tickets to them and they would screw it up and we simply said sorry to fix this, we need to do it again. So after 6 months they gave that idea up entirely. After around a year or so of this, I'm being deliberately vague on timing so please don't ask about it. We all decided to all seek other employment having found we all could not trust the company or manager anymore. And we all found roles elsewhere within a week of each other so all handed our 4-week notices, again to the letter of our employment contracts, and were due to all leave on the same day. Now the female member of the team who was a very learned person and she revealed in all our contracts any documentation we create is ours and we can do with it how we wish when we leave. So we hatch a plan. In the final week we are there we move all our digital stuff to one location. Including all my manuals and cheat sheets for my previous team. They both did the same with their previous positions within the company. On our final day we bring in our own external drives and with its help download and removed all documentation and deleted the copies on the company systems. We all said our goodbyes and at the end of the day quite happily told our manager what we had done. He exploded and demanded it back and we calmly tell him not according to the letter of our contracts this, waving the drives at him, is ours and we choose to remove it with us. We were later told by friends who remained that the sales director had a fit because now no one was doing quotes for him. Gladly we all have had great new places and keep in touch. Story 3. I won over $5,000 for in court after a car accident that I caused. Okay. So just a little bit of info before I get into the story. Also sorry this might get a little long, but I hope it's worth it. 22M, work construction and run a few crews, and I'm a foreman because I've been working in this field since I started working summers when I was 14, that's legal in my state. With this being said, I have a lot of experience and get paid really well. For my job I need a truck that can pull a lot of trailers and also get into a lot of sketchy job sites, especially in the winter, so I drive a new lifted pickup, F350. Anyways, let's get into it. So about 4 months ago now I got off work one day and just really didn't feel like making dinner, so I decided to go get myself the trusty Big Mac at McDonald's. Well, after I got my order I was going to pull out into the parking lot to drive home, and I was looking hard over to my left to see how busy the road was before I got over there. Well, I wasn't paying great attention to what was happening in front of me, and as I was creeping forward someone who was in front of me was stopped and not paying attention either. I ended up barely hitting his mirror and scraping his door with my front end. I immediately reversed and hopped out. I made sure the guy was okay and apologized, knowing it was my fault, and I asked him if he wanted to call the cops. "Let's call him Brent," Brent says. "Nah bro, we are all good. If you just get me your insurance info I think we can get this taken care of." I was fine with that as there was no damage done to my truck and it's not required to call the cops for an accident if it occurs in a private parking lot. This is relevant later. We exchange info and he seems pretty cool, so I tell him to go get the damage bid and he'll just pay in cash so my insurance rates don't go up as long as he's okay with it. He says that's fine and we both just leave, and I feel like a moron, but all in all Brent seems like a cool dude and I just hope we can get it sorted out smoothly. About a month passes by and I haven't heard anything from Brent or the shop I told him to go to. Honestly, I wasn't too stressed about this because if he decided to not get it done, that's on him. Well, he calls me up one day at about noon saying he can't remember my name and he wanted to tell the guys at the shop who sent him there cause it seemed like we knew each other. I told him my name and the guys at the shop gave him a deal. Pretty sure they say this to everyone, lol. He sends me the bid for damages and it comes out to $2,403. This was more than I imagined, but I said to get it done and I'd take care of the bill afterward, and that was that. He hung up, said it was cool, and I went on with my day as usual. Another month goes by and I don't hear anything until Brent calls me up while I'm at work again and says, "Hey brother, I talked to the shop and they said they can't get me in for another 2 weeks or so, and they may end up charging me more if they find more damage." I say, "Okay, sounds good, just let me know man, I hope it goes smooth for you and I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He seems to take it good and I'm really trying to just be a good person. He responds with, "Well, after talking to my wife I'm okay if you just wanted to write a check for $2,500 and we can call it even." This seemed odd to me because why the hell wouldn't someone want their vehicle repairs all paid for? I say, "Okay man, let's set a time and place to meet and I'll get you paid." He liked the idea and ended the call by telling me he would let me know. Yet another month passes by and I hear nothing again. At this point I'm getting fed up and just want this situation to stop being over my head. He hits me up at 11 p.m. one night and asks if we can meet in town. I found this kind of disrespectful because I was nearly asleep and had to be at work at 5 a.m. the next day. Either way I said that was fine and took my $2,500 cash and wrote up a quick contract saying this payment would be accepted as payment in full for the damages, and by accepting it, it would release me from any and all liability. This was a pretty fair contract I believe, as it was the deal we had already made over the phone, just in writing. I get to the place we suggested as a meet-up spot. I give him the cash and he signs the contract without hardly even reading it, and he didn't want the copy. This was a red flag to me, but I just assumed he really didn't care about it all that much, so I just send him the photo of the contract and go back home for some beauty sleep. As you can guess by now, another fucking month goes by with me just living life carefree and not a worry in the world about this stupid car accident. Well, I go to check my mail and I have a notice from this guy's lawyer that he is suing me for not paying after wrecking his car. This pissed me off, but I also knew I had plenty of text messages and a contract on my side. I immediately call Brent and he blocks my number. Luckily enough my girlfriend works for a lawyer, so I get him updated and he says he'd love to help. He lets me know I saved my ass by writing that contract, as any contract worth over $500 is to be held up in any level court in my state. I immediately get to work on my revenge. I remember on the side of this guy's car he had a business logo and I took pictures of the damage, so I hop online and get to the BBB to look up who owns this company, thinking that surely he couldn't own the business because he is such an idiot. I was wrong. This guy owns the company and I can see that he has about 12 one-star reviews, all in dispute because of his shady business practices, telling people it will cost one thing and then charging them 4 times what he said it would. Sound familiar? Remember when he said the shop may charge more than the original $2,403? That's right, he was suing me for $10,000. 4 times what the shop told him it would cost. Unbelievable. He was trying his same sneaky shit on me. My lawyer takes note of this and we show up to court ready for war. This guy is sleazy. As we get there and all set up, he says, "You ready to give me more of daddy's money?" With a smirk. I guess just cause I'm young and drive a nice truck and could afford $2,500 LOL. His lawyer gets up and starts trying to say BS from me hitting and running, and Brent barely got a picture of my license plate. I tried bullying him into taking a deal for only $2,500 when the damage was clearly more than that. There were obvious holes in his story and he really didn't have much to say. Just imagine the smile on my face as my lawyer lays out the printouts of our text messages and the physical copy of the contract, which was signed by Brent. His lawyer was ghostly white and looked sick. After laying out all of the evidence, my lawyer pulled out a little hidden gem, the printouts of all the complaints we found on the BBB and how he was doing the same thing to me. That was the final nail in the coffin, as the judge said he had seen enough. He asked Brent for any final statements and Brent said, "I don't even have the $2,500 anymore, can I just get that then and we will be okay?" Literally admitting to the judge that he had received my money and his story was just a load of horseshit. I thought his lawyer was gonna strangle him. It was beautiful. The judge ended up ruling in my favor and demanded him to pay my legal fees as well as damages and lost wages because I had to miss work to be in court. The absolute sweetest part was that this particular day my crew was on a very high-wage job and I was technically the one getting paid before I paid them out as subcontractors. This means I was to be paid $4.75/hour and this whole ordeal took about 5 hours. He ended up having to pay me almost $5,000. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. It was so long I just really felt the need to share. Thank you to anyone who made it this far. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.